Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, Lord. As Jesus came down from the mountain with Peter, James, and John, and approached the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and scribes arguing with them. Immediately on seeing Jesus, the whole crowd was utterly amazed. They ran up to him and greeted him. He asked them, "What are you arguing about with them?" Someone with the crowd answered, "Teacher, I have brought to you my son possessed by a mute spirit. Wherever it seizes him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive it out, but they were unable to do so." He said to them in reply, "O faithless generation, how long will I be with you? How long will I endure you? Bring him to me." They brought the boy to him. When Jesus saw him, the spirit immediately threw the boy into convulsions. As he fell to the ground, he began to roll around and foam at the mouth. Jesus questioned the father, "How long has this been happening to him?" He replied, "Since childhood. It has often thrown him into fire and into water to kill him. If you can do anything, have compassion on us and help him." Jesus said, "If you can, everything is possible to the one who has faith." Then the boy's father cried out, "I do believe, help my unbelief." Jesus, on seeing a crowd rapidly gathering, rebuked the unclean spirit and said to it, "Mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." Shouting and throwing the boy into convulsions, he came out. He became like a corpse, which caused many to say, "He is dead." But Jesus took him by the hand, raised him, and he stood up. When he entered the house, the disciples asked him in private, "Why could we not drive out the spirit?" Jesus said to them, "This kind can only come out through prayer." The Gospel of the Lord. It strikes me to point out the obvious theme from the first reading, and particularly the psalm, the majesty and the glory of God. There is but one Most High God, all-powerful Creator, King, truly awe-inspiring, the inspiring one, seated on his throne. He is the God of dominion. The Lord is King. He is robed in majesty. Very true, right? God deserves all our adoration, worship, and glory because he is the King of all majesty. Did people recognize the glory and the majesty of Jesus? It seems like a contradiction, but what mountain were they coming down? Pretty obvious. They were coming down with Jesus, came down with Peter, James, and John. It's the mountain of the Transfiguration. He was on that mountain, and his majesty, his glory was revealed, and he shone bright as light. Today is not that story, but that story is, that experience, not just a story, was that so that Peter, James, and John would be strengthened as the leading disciples, that when Jesus himself suffered death, not so majestic, on that ugly and wretched cross, yet revealed his glory. why weren't the other disciples unable to deliver this poor young boy? We can't deny or excuse or put aside the fact, well, Jesus simply clearly said, well, you can only do it by prayer. Well, that's pretty true of any deliverance work. It's really by prayer and faith. I'd like to suggest, whether it's not the real reason or not, they saw a large crowd around them, and the scribes were arguing with them. Some people are a lot easier to pray with than others. Some people are ready and willing to receive the graces of God. Other people aren't very clear about what they really want. Sometimes it's quite vague. And if there's a family member present, sometimes there's just a lot of energy. Like if a mom is there or a wife, and it's like then you've got different currents going on. I would suspect that the scribes were arguing and demeaning these young disciples who are trying to heal and deliver in the name of Jesus. And they were probably berating them and diminishing or causing them to doubt. They couldn't come to their heart of prayer because they were distracted by the scribes. They see Jesus and they're utterly amazed. I suspect perhaps that the glow of his glory was still on his face. Or maybe they were amazed because they know he's the one that's been doing all the healing. The story unfolds. And Jesus takes particular note. If you can, the man said, if you can, have compassion on us and help us. He wants to believe, but he's probably only heard about Jesus, hasn't really seen him do anything, and he's between doubt and faith because he's approached the disciples of Jesus and they weren't able to do anything. Jesus seems to take a bit of an offense. If you can, everything is possible to the one who has faith. Put it in that frame. Consider the faith Jesus needed. He always does the heavy lifting. Jesus had to have faith. Jesus had faith in the Father because he prayed and he was in communion with the Father. And in the power of that communion of love in the Father through the Spirit, he could heal. Did he have to think twice about it? No, not exactly the way we think of that. But he did so only in the mindfulness and the power, the relationship, the deep trust, the pure trust and faith he had in the Father. There's something there I hope you can ponder today. Interesting that this boy, don't know his age, he was like a corpse. Was he dead? I doubt it. Did Jesus raise him? Maybe. Maybe he was simply unconscious. Either way, he had to get up and take up his life in a new way. There were certain people that came to the healing mass this week, one individual in particular, a reasonably young man, and he had kind of several things he needed help with. And he, I think, was a little questioning when the whole process started. But by the end, he was had a whole different disposition. He willingly, at least by an admission of his desire, was willing to release or let go of his doubt and fear and weightedness of life. And he made a commitment. He said out loud, no, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to go forward. That's the grace of grace. What graces did Jesus feel after he healed this boy? I suspect probably not immediately, but maybe. But as he did his examination of conscience or his examen, looking at his day, he might have looked at the Father, God, Father, you are so cool. That was so neat. I was just so inspired by your love in me. And I could just say that word, and man, that boy was healed. But the fruit of that healing, at some point, that boy had to get up and take up his life. Did his father let him? Did his father encourage him? Healing is rarely a singular process. God does the heavy lifting, but we have to participate in those things so that as the grace is given, we have to engage that grace, embrace it, and come to faith. Jesus healed out of compassion, but much of the time, if not all the time, he healed to bring people to faith. Did he want to heal people? Absolutely. But more deeply, he wanted them to believe in the Father in whom he believed. If there's something there you can ponder today, good.